Tonight, we are continuing to discuss a topic that I believe is a parent red alert. A few months ago, we covered a shocking new trend law enforcement calls a takeover, an event organized on social media with the sole intention of gathering as many teens and young adults as possible in order to literally take over city and suburban streets, parks, malls, and houses to party in for profit. Now, often these events result in businesses ransacked and neighborhoods destroyed from chaotic behavior and violence that ensues, many times leading to arrest and death.
Takeover parties is what we've taken to calling this phenomenon. Get a group of young people getting organized, showing up at a place that they're not supposed to be, taking over abandoned building, a warehouse, or a residence in some instances, waving guns around. That's a recipe for disaster. What we have seen is that young people are dying at these parties.
Well, over the course of this past week, my team has been working to gather intel online in order to track alleged takeover party host in Bexar County, Texas. And once the address was revealed, we immediately provided it to Bexar County Sheriff's Office. That night, they allowed our cameras to follow them to that location, and sure enough, there were teens, drugs, alcohol, and guns.
Get on the ground! We got a dog!
Stay your Turn off your car. Turn it off.
It's your hand! Keep your hands away from your body! On the floor now! On the floor now!
Crawl out feet first. Crawl out feet first. Keep coming. Keep coming. Keep coming. Good. I got you covered.
All the way down. All the way down now.
Your house doesn't smell like marijuana. You understand that, right? You got a bar on you?
Anybody else inside the house?
It looks like it's semi-automatic. These are the weapons that are claiming the lives of innocent kids on the street. Same weapon that's being used in school shootings across the nation.
We got the host.
Come to the back when we find discarded marijuana, we find alcohol and beer, and then come to find a rifle. You introduce that, and that's a recipe for disaster.
Melina knows firsthand how unsafe a takeover can be. Her teenage boyfriend, Landon, was shot and killed.
On August 3rd, we decided to go to a party. When we went to the final house, it was just packed, and it ended up being a lot of people just waving guns in the air. Me and Landon had walked outside, and that's when we heard the first gunshot. I just remember running, and when I got to my car, I realized that he wasn't with me, so I ran back into the house. There was people standing around, a person on the ground. I realized it was Landon when I saw his shirt. I ran up to him, and I just started screaming for people to help him. These parties are very dangerous. I feel guilt from it because I know had I not wanted to go, he would still be here.
My guest, Sasha, her son Landon's shooter is still on the loose.
Landon was not into the party scene. The night of the party, he decided to go with his girlfriend, Melina,
to make sure that she got home safely. We got the phone call that there was only one fatality, and immediately I knew that it was my son. My world fell apart. You're never thinking that you're gonna bury your children.
It doesn't matter how well-intended they are.
Yeah.
You put certain things together, it's just going to spell disaster, right?
Yes.
You put drugs, alcohol, brains that aren't finished growing yet,
Sure.
and then you throw guns in the middle of it, and who knows what happens. Tonight, we are continuing our coverage on this dangerous takeover trend and specifically focusing on street takeovers where hundreds of young adults close down streets to perform reckless car stunts. If I had a soapbox, I would climb up on it right now, because what you were just looking at here are these teens just taking over a street, taking over an intersection. The police show up and they swarm and attack the police car. They're kicking the police car, trying to kick the windows out of the police car. Let me tell you something, guys. Enough's enough and too much is too much. You've heard me say, and maybe it sounds old-fashioned, but the backbone of this country, the backbone of any society is the family. It's the family unit. And when I look at something like you were just looking at here, with these kids out swarming this intersection, climbing up on, kicking a police car, trying to kick the windows out of a police car, you know what my first thought is? Every one of those kids has a parent somewhere. Where is the parent for every one of these kids? And what in the world is going on that that kid has been raised in such a way that he thinks that's okay? Because you know who's in that police car? In that police car is a man or a woman who gets up every morning and puts on a uniform and steps out into the world to stand in the gap to keep you and me safe every single day. And then they show up where something like this is going on and they're swarmed and attacked by a bunch of teenagers. Where are their parents? Does that occur to y'all when you see that? Where is their parents? Were these kids raised by wolves? And if you don't know that your kid's out trying to kick the windows out of a police car, let me tell you something. It's your job to know. And I've done some shows recently involving school shooters. And you remember the school shooter, Ethan Crumley, up in Michigan. They prosecuted the parents. You know why? Because the parents enabled the child. And the child went out and did something tragic. And when they checked back, the parents were recklessly, negligently inattentive. So if you're watching this, you need to know where your kids are and what you're doing. My first guest, Eli, is a household name here in Texas when it comes to hosting legal car events. I didn't say illegal, I said legal. He says he understands what draws the younger generation to illegal street takeovers because he was once drawn to them himself.
I'm a lifelong car enthusiast. As a young kid, uninformed, I went to a lot of illegal car meets and witnessed a bunch of crazy things. The first actual takeover I've been to, I saw 3 or 4 people get hit by cars. I have seen cars doing crazy burnouts, hitting light posts. I've seen a mob of the takeover guys throw fireworks in cop cars. I've seen them smash civilian cars. I've seen them light a ring of fire, stand in the middle while cars are doing donuts around them. I've seen shootings. People like takeovers because of the adrenaline rush. After seeing how unorganized they were, that's really what made me want to start hosting my own events. The first time I hosted an unpermitted event, maybe 50 cars came. Within 6 weeks, we had 500 cars. As those got bigger, we started hosting actual meets at real venues with police and permits. We also host at churches to do charity drives. We do an annual food drive. We host giveaways. We host competitions. My events definitely have the potential to go out of control, but I make sure every event I have at least 20 to 30 staff members. I have off-duty police officers there, and I also have the venues provided staff security on hand as well. So if any reckless behavior happens at my event, they'll kick them out. My biggest focus right now is saving the car scene. Takeovers are super dangerous. They risk everybody's lives. I just want to provide a safe and fun event where these dangers don't happen.
Well, Eli, thank you for being here and talking about this. Now, you say people go to these street takeovers for the adrenaline. You know, they're wanting that rush, right? They're wanting to get almost getting hit by a car or running from the police when they show up and everybody has to scatter.
Absolutely, that's the whole point.
So how many of these did you go to before you grew the rest of your brain and decided not to be an idiot?
Yeah, so I've never attended a street takeover where you take over an intersection or anything like that. I started attending unorganized car meets where you go to a parking lot, and you just find an address on Instagram and you just go. And then you see a bunch of cars you like. But seeing how unorganized those were made me want to kind of host my own. I didn't see any effort being put into them, any organization put into them. And then I saw on Instagram shortly after I started hosting little car meets, 20, 30, 50 cars. I started seeing street takeovers everywhere on the news, on Instagram. Every 3 reels, I'd get one takeover video just because I like cars. And I would see, you know, police cars getting lit on fire, fireworks being lit in police cars.
Yeah. And you've seen cars doing donuts inside a ring of fire and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, I've seen it all.
I mean, it can look like a lot of fun, and why not do it where it's not illegal and there's some safety involved in it?
Absolutely.
And we're going to talk about that. You've seen people get smashed between cars?
Yeah, so I went to what they call a legal pit. I like the movement, what they're trying to do. A lot of the legal pits that you see around, I don't see it being actually legal. They just find an owner of a piece of concrete to allow them to come out, and they'll sell tickets. But they'll get 500 people surrounding, you know, a few cars doing donuts, and I decided to attend one, and just to see how it all plays out. I wanted to feel the adrenaline of a takeover, and I wanted to see what the hype was all about. So I went, I parked my car, and as I was walking into the pit, is what they call it. The pit is the 500 people standing around, and then the 2 cars doing donuts in the middle. As I was walking to the pit, I see a guy holding his girlfriend and her legs hanging by her knee. I see a bunch of blood. I was like, well, that's not a great first impression. And I walked into the pit, and after that, I saw a few more people get smashed in between shipping containers and stuff like that.
Oh, jeez. Next, an alleged street takeover that left a young man dead and his fiancée clinging for her life after a reckless driver hit them both as they crossed the street walking friends home from a dinner party. That's where it gets out of control. We're going to meet the fiancée and the young man's sister because they were just taking a walk. We'll be right back.
The vehicle was going so fast that at impact, it tore one of Raymond's legs off. He was pinned under the vehicle. The scene was so gruesome. Maria was resuscitated at the scene. She was in a coma for 3 weeks.
You say the man who killed your brother may only serve 2.5 years in prison. How do you feel about that? $36 trillion. That is the U.S. debt, and it gets deeper and deeper by the day. Our debt has never been higher, nor have the stakes. The government is looking to slash the federal budget by $2 trillion, and no one knows what that will mean for your job, savings, and future. I've seen a lot in my time, and there's one thing I know for sure. You need to prepare before it's too late. I trust Preserve Gold to help protect my wealth, and I strongly urge you to do the same. They are the only precious metals firm I trust and recommend to my family, friends, and audience, and they have a special offer just for you. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 to get your free precious metals guide from Preserve Gold. With gold prices recently breaking records and analysts predicting this trend to continue throughout 2025, you cannot afford to wait. As a bonus, you can get up to $15,000 with a qualified purchase from Preserve Gold. So don't wait. Text Dr. Phil to 50505 today. Cindy and Maria know firsthand just how dangerous a street takeover can be. Maria says what started out as a fun night hosting a dinner party for friends ended up with her in a coma and her loving fiance, Raymond, dead. Maria says while crossing the street, she and Raymond were run over by a young man allegedly leaving a street takeover. Now Maria is left to pick up the pieces while Raymond's sister, Cindy, fights for safer streets in honor of her late brother.
When I woke up, the doctor came running to me. She told me not to get out of bed because I had been in a car accident.
I get a call from my sister telling me my brother died. The vehicle was going so fast that at impact, it tore one of Raymond's legs off. He was pinned under the vehicle. The scene was so gruesome. Maria was resuscitated at the scene. She was in a coma for 3 weeks.
I sustained a dislocated jaw, a broken skull. 3 of my fingers were broken. I have a laceration on my left thigh and fractures on my ribs.
The driver of the vehicle was 21 years old. He was leaving a takeover. It boils my blood. This movement just keeps getting bigger and no one's really doing anything about it. She went from being a healthy 27-year-old ready to get married, and someone's reckless act just came and took everything from them.
Takeovers are dumb. They're still doing takeovers right there on our street. They're driving at a very, very high speed. I see it.
Well, thank you both for being here. Sorry for the occasion, of course. Cindy, you say the man who killed your brother may only serve 2.5 years in prison, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct. He's scheduled to be released from prison for good behavior next summer.
And how do you feel about that?
I feel disappointed. I feel angry. And I feel like my whole family was robbed from our whole future. My little brother was the center of our world. Our lives are
You know, I had strong words about this at the top of the show when I said, what's an adrenaline rush worth? You guys are just walking, right?
Yes.
Just walking some friends home. And you've got to ask yourself every day,
Why?
what do you ask yourself?
Why? That's what I ask myself every day, just why?